In our previous episode, we saw how COMT clears dopamine and stress hormones from the prefrontal cortex of the brain. We also saw that people with the Met variant clear these chemicals about 3 to 4 times more slowly than people with the Val variant. I am Dr. Kwame, I'm a physician and co-founder of LiveWello. In this episode, I'm going to explain why supplements like green tea extract can improve one person's focus while making someone else feel anxious, and how your COMT genotype explains the difference. Have you ever taken a supplement that's supposed to improve your focus, but instead it left you feeling like wired, anxious, overstimulated, and basically unable to sleep? Well, green tea extract is a surprisingly common example of this. For some people, it improves their focus and mental clarity just as you would expect. But for others, the very same dose of this supplement leaves them feeling restless, tense, and overstimulated. The reason comes back to one thing: how quickly your COMT enzyme clears dopamine and stress hormones from your brain. Let me describe this effect using this graph. Along the bottom is the amount of dopamine in the prefrontal cortex of the brain. The level increases as we move to the right. And when the level of dopamine is low, you have a focus drops. And when it's too high, you have over-arousal, anxiety, and overstimulation on this end. Too much dopamine, either because too much dopamine is produced or not enough dopamine is cleared quickly enough. In the middle, you have the optimal zone where you have optimal focus, memory, and regulation. On the on the axis here, you have performance of the prefrontal cortex of the brain in regulating your mood and your focus and your memory. As the level of dopamine increases, the performance of the prefrontal cortex improves as well, until it gets to this point at the peak where you have peak performance. Okay, and this can be like a sweet spot where you have just the right amount of dopamine in the system and the right amount of focus. But beyond this point, with increasing levels of dopamine or persistence of dopamine in the prefrontal cortex, that means it's not being cleared fast enough, the brain becomes overstimulated, focus begins to fall, and anxiety becomes much more likely. Everyone has this basic type of curve. What differs is where you start on this axis. Are you more towards the left, where at baseline, are you more towards the left? Are you more towards the middle or towards the right? Okay. And that's where COMT comes in. People that have the Val variant clear dopamine much more quickly. Okay, that means that on average, they tend to operate a little further to the left of the curve. People that have the Met variant clear dopamine more slowly. The dopamine remains active for longer in their system, in their PFC of their brain. So on average, they tend to operate a little further to the right side of the curve. COMT isn't the only thing that determines your position on this curve. Other things like stress, sleep, caffeine, medications, and other genes matter as well. But COMT helps explain where you are likely to begin before a supplement changes your dopamine signaling. Let's see what happens when you take a supplement that shifts dopamine to the right on this curve. Different supplements get there in different ways. Some help your brain produce more dopamine, and others slow the COMT enzyme down, allowing dopamine to remain active for longer. Either way, dopamine moves towards the right. For someone with the Val variant who starts over in this end, that shift often moves them closer to the brain's optimal range. So you take the supplement and it pushes you into the optimal range. So your focus improves and thinking feels clearer. But for someone with a Met variant, they're starting more on this end. They have this Met variant, they're starting more on the right side of the curve. Okay, so the very same supplement can push them beyond the optimal range, leaving them feeling anxious, restless, and wired. Green tea extract is one of the most popular supplements for focus and metabolism. Its main active ingredient is a compound called EGCG. A normal cup of green tea contains relatively small amounts of EGCG. However, green tea extract capsules contain much more concentrated quantities of EGCG. And at these higher concentrations, EGCG can significantly slow the COMT enzyme. For a person with a Val158Met variant, slowing down the COMT enzyme slightly can move dopamine closer to the brain's optimal range, improving their focus. But for someone with the Met variant, who already has a slower COMT enzyme, slowing it even further means dopamine remains active for a longer period, increasing the chance of feeling overstimulated and restless. Green tea extract slows COMT enzyme, allowing dopamine to remain active for longer. Tyrosine works differently. It's a building block the brain uses to make more dopamine. Methylated B vitamins support the methylation reactions involved in dopamine metabolism. In some people, especially at high doses, they can increase dopamine signaling enough to produce symptoms like insomnia and anxiety. For someone starting further to the left of the curve, that shift may actually improve their focus. But for somebody who has the Met variant starting further to the right of the curve, this increases the chance of being overstimulated and restless. This is why supplement advice can be so confusing. One person says, green tea extract improved my focus, while another person says, it made me anxious and I couldn't sleep. Both experiences can be true. The supplement did exactly what it's supposed to do. It increased dopamine signaling. The difference was where each person's brain was operating at baseline before they took the supplement. So in summary, here's what we've covered. Your brain performs best within an optimal range of dopamine. Too little makes it harder to focus. Too much leads to overstimulation and poorer performance. Your COMT genotype influences where you're most likely to operate on that curve. People with the Val158Met variant tend to operate a little further to the left, where increasing dopamine is more likely to improve focus. People with the Met variant tend to operate further to the right, often closer to the brain's sweet spot, leaving less room before extra dopamine becomes overstimulating. When a supplement raises dopamine or slows the rate at which dopamine is cleared, both people move in the same direction, towards the right. But because they start in different places, they don't always end up in the same place. That's why the very same supplement can improve one person's focus while making someone else feel anxious or overstimulated. It's the same direction, different starting point, different outcome. In the next episode, we'll look at another important role of COMT, one that has nothing to do with dopamine or stress hormones, but affects many people in a completely different way. Before I go, remember that this video is educational only. Genetic variants describe tendencies, not certainties. Your overall health, lifestyle, medications, and many other genes all influence how you respond to a supplement. Thank you for watching, and if you like this episode, consider sharing it with someone else who might find it useful.